Hello everyone, this is Leah Whitehorse, and in this recording I'm going to be exploring the astrology of September 2024. So we have another very big month ahead. We have already just had a very vibrant, active month with Jupiter square to Saturn in July, which was being activated by Mars. We had a big old T-square in action as well. And it certainly felt to me as though there were some quite potent shifts beginning to happen during this time, and it was a little heated as we would have expected with Mars in particular. Over here in the UK, we had an extraordinary and very unpleasant situation where there has been rioting and there has been a lot of sort of outpouring of racism, and it's been a very unpleasant atmosphere over here. And I think a lot of this is the tensions that we are seeing between Jupiter and Saturn. And as we come into September, this aspect is still in action. I just wanted to make people aware of that. Yes, we have had the exact date in August, but when we come into September, Jupiter is still on 19 degrees of Gemini, and then we have Saturn there at 16 degrees of Pisces. So they are still pretty close. The Sun is going to be activating the same pattern again, the same T-square pattern, once it reaches the opposition to Saturn from Virgo. So we are still under this influence of, I almost want to say 2 steps forwards, 1 step back. It kind of feels a little like that at the moment, that every advance is met by some kind of resistance. And this is the nature of Jupiter and Saturn. One expands, Jupiter, the other contracts, Saturn, and both of them are trying to work in tandem so that we can advance, so that we can develop as a society. These planets are social planets, and they speak of sort of the generations and how we develop over time with our philosophy and our ideologies and everything that we're trying to conceive of as a society. And as one generation comes up and begins to push for change, then sometimes naturally the older generation kind of resists. And we're trying to kind of come to a happy medium between these types of energies. And of course, we are all experiencing this on a personal level as well, because this aspect will be happening in our own personal charts. Now, on the 1st of September, Sedna in Gemini is going to station retrograde. Now, this is a little bit more subtle because Sedna is such a slow moving body. She has an 11,000 year orbit. She's very fresh and new in Gemini. And she has been and is still connecting with Pluto up there in Aquarius. So again, we have the same story about the evolution of consciousness and how that is going to change society. And with Sedna now going retrograde here, it feels like we are having to go over some of these ideas that we have had, we, the collective, particularly those in the sciences, particularly those who are working for the future of humanity in some way. There is going to be a lot of questioning as Sedna stations retrograde about where it is that we are going and what do we actually know. What do we know while Sedna goes retrograde in Gemini? She will station at 1 degree and 11 minutes of Gemini, and she will go back to 0 degrees and 5 minutes. So almost back to the very, very beginning of Gemini. And she will be in retrograde motion until the 11th of February 2025. So as I say, it's more of a collective influence. If you do have anything between 0 0 and 1 degree of Gemini, then maybe you are going to be feeling a little bit of this influence. And often Sedna kind of pushes us to have a more respectful nature with each other, and also a more respectful nature with the land that we live on, and with the land as a collective. I guess the fact that she's in air, we could also say maybe there is something about respecting our air. And I think pollution is going to be one of the big things going forward, especially with Pluto in airy Aquarius coming up. So that is going to speak a lot about the pollution that is in the air as well. So some of these themes are likely to be in play with Sedna stationing retrograde. We then have Uranus stationing retrograde. This is also still on the 1st of September, so it's a real kind of turnaround day. Now, this is going to be at 27 degrees and 15 minutes of the sign Taurus, Uranus stationing retrograde, and Uranus will go back to 23 degrees and 15 minutes of Taurus. So if you have anything between 23 and 27 degrees of Taurus, then Uranus is going to be transiting that point, it's going to be activating that point. Uranus will be in retrograde motion until the 30th of January 2025. And I think it's also important to note that this is the last time in our lifetime, perhaps, for the majority of us probably listening, it's going to be the last time that we will ever experience Uranus stationing retrograde in Taurus. There will be a point when Uranus retrogrades back into Taurus, but we won't ever experience Uranus stationing retrograde in Taurus in our lifetime, because Uranus has a 84-year orbit, so it'll be 84 years before it will come back to this sign. So this is important. When Uranus stations retrograde, the idea is that he takes us on this inner journey to reclaim those parts of ourselves that we have pushed away because we thought they were just too weird, too different, too renegade, too maverick, too rebellious, just too odd. And so this is the time when we are reclaiming our inner rebel. We are going back in and rescuing the little weird person that lives within us that has all these crazy ideas that actually are quite brilliant and need to be heard, at least by ourselves. So this is important because we are trying to free ourselves from some kind of value system. This is Taurus. Some kind of value system that is holding us back and keeping us stuck and telling us that we need to just do the same things. We need to just stick to the path that is known. The familiar path is better, says Taurus. But Uranus is saying no. Uranus is saying we need to change things up here because the earth is suffering and we are suffering and our resources are suffering. And so we're shaking things up, which is always uncomfortable, particularly in Taurus. We're shaking things up with Uranus. We're shaking things up internally so that we can get unstuck. So this is the process of Uranus stationing retrograde, going retrograde. He's going to shake things up so that we can free ourselves and we can start to thrive instead of just kind of sticking with what we know, which is very Taurus. Now, from there, Pluto, already in retrograde motion, is going to re-enter Capricorn. This is on the 2nd of September. So a lot of the big stuff is happening right at the beginning of the month. So this is important because Pluto's going to go back into Capricorn to finish the job, to finish what he set out to do in this sign, which was breaking down old systems that aren't working for us anymore, getting rid of toxic people that are at the top who are in authority. This is also Capricorn. Getting rid of the structures of society that don't work for us. So this is also connected with governments and, agencies that have a lot of power, forcing us to look at who has the power and who doesn't. and where is it necessary for some people to have power, and where is it that that power has been sort of grappled away from other people. We could also substitute the word wealth, because wealth is Pluto. Pluto rules the underworld, the place where we have coal and tin and diamonds and all those precious things that we put a big label on and a huge price on. He rules all this stuff, all the wealth. And as we know, as many of us know, the wealth distribution in our current world, in our current Western world in particular, is not exactly equal. So we get some kind of story about the distribution of wealth and how we have some kind of necessity to change this. Now, Pluto going back onto this degree is important too, because the 29th degree is anaretic, which means it's a critical degree, which means there is some kind of urgency here. And Pluto's not going to get off this degree. He's going to stay on this degree all the way through his retrograde and then station direct on that degree. He's going to station direct on the 12th of October. And then he's going to stick around on that degree until he enters Aquarius again, re-enters Aquarius again for the long time on the 19th of November. So from the 2nd of September through to the 19th of November, Pluto is going to be on the 29th degree of Capricorn. The Sabian symbol of this degree is a secret meeting of men responsible for executive decisions in world affairs. Yep, it's a big degree. And there's a lot of big stuff that we could anticipate coming from this, because Pluto is saying it is urgent now for us to complete this part of the mission, to transform these structures, these government systems, these secret meetings. It's all getting exposed. There are things being exposed. It's funny, as I'm actually saying this, I'm suddenly getting a flash in my mind of a book that is coming out. I don't know if it's out today or just out, a book called Imminent, which was written by somebody who worked for the Secret Service, Pentagon, something along those lines. Anyway, he's just released a book, a bunch of stuff about all the stuff about aliens that we don't know about, that we should know about, and it's just making me think of that. So make of that what you will, but hopefully maybe one day we will actually get the expose that we deserve. So anyway, Pluto going back onto that degree, aliens aside, I think we are just going to see a lot of stuff occurring that is going to be breaking down some of these systems that have been in play. And like I say, exposing some of these systems that aren't really working for us. They have had the control, but they're not working for us. So from there, we then have the new moon in Virgo. That's on the 3rd of September. So we have some kind of new start that is connected to the idea of wanting things to be better, to make some kind of improvement. This is connected with health. I am mindful that we've got this stuff in the news at the moment about monkeypox. I haven't researched anything at all about it. I literally just read the headlines. But I'm noting it because we also have Mars square to Neptune also on the 3rd of September. So Mars can speak of things that attack. Neptune is something that is, unseen. So unseen enemies, we can sometimes put that sort of term to things like viruses that obviously we can't physically see. So I'm not really making too much of that. I'm just kind of noting that maybe there is more news around this kind of thing. I'm not really thinking about sort of another major pandemic or anything like that. But that said, I haven't researched it, so I don't really know one way or the other. We do have, though, the impetus to make things better with the new moon in Virgo, to do something, to set some kind of seed to improve our circumstances. but the actions that we take could be a bit misdirected. This is Mars square to Neptune. And sometimes we can go off at the wrong person as well with Mars square to Neptune. We get angry and our anger gets misdirected to somebody or something that was nothing to do with anything. So we have unconscious anger sometimes, unconscious motivations sort of bleeding out when we have Mars square to Neptune. So we just need to be careful that we are listening to our intuition around this time. Our intuition can guide our actions if we listen to those feelings that are underneath everything, rather than let the mind run away with us. This is Mars in Gemini. So it's a little bit of a complicated period of time. We are also going to have Venus joining the South Node around this time. This is on the 4th of September. So there's starting to be now a lot of activity around the nodes, and that's going to continue through this month, as you will hear. But we get this activation of the South Node, the prompt to let go of old agreements that are no longer working, or to let go of the old flame or the old relationship that is still in some way informing the current relationship that we are in. Something needs to be let go of where we've kind of allowed our heart to be sort of carried away. Venus conjunct the South Node. We also have Mars entering Cancer today. So now Mars is not overly comfortable in this sign. He is exalted in Capricorn, the opposite sign. So he is considered to be in his fall in Cancer. However, a planet that struggles in a sign can actually end up working incredibly well, because it works even harder to make things work. So we are motivated, Mars, to take care of our family, to take care of our home, to get things done at home. You know, this can be really good for I need to decorate, or I need to have a huge clear out at home. That could be a really good way of using this kind of energy. Or I need to get motivated for this family gathering that we're creating. The only problem is sometimes Mars in Cancer can bring out a little bit of conflict in families if there has been something that has been sort of bubbling beneath the surface. We get the idea of a boiling point, boiling water. Mars in Cancer. Cancer is a water sign. So we get boiling water. And that is something we just need to be mindful of if there have been any rumblings in our family circumstances. But generally, Mars going into Cancer is let's use our energy, will and drive to create a good family structure and to get on with the things that need to be done at home. Our home-based goals, or the goals that we have as far as our home is concerned and our domestic life is concerned. On the 8th of September, I'm just noting that Pallas is going to go into Sagittarius. She was here back in February. So Pallas went into Sagittarius in February and then stationed retrograde and then spent a long time back in Scorpio. So there's a little bit of a feeling now that maybe there was a problem that we were trying to fix back in February. And now we've kind of gone all around the houses and we've come back to it with a fresh perspective. So there's a sense that we're resolving. We're finally starting to solve the problem that was foxing us back in February. Now we get a similar theme continuing here, because on the 9th of September, the day after Pallas goes into Sagittarius, Mercury is going to enter Virgo. And Mercury was here before. He was here in July, 25th of July, when he first entered Virgo, but then just a few days later, he stationed retrograde and went back into Leo. So now Mercury has once again come back to where he was a few weeks ago at the end of July. And now again, we have the idea that we've got a new perspective, a different way of dealing with whatever problems we have or fixing whatever needed to be fixed in Virgo. Now we've got, it's almost like now you've got your head on straight. That's Mercury going into Virgo. Now we've got our heads straight. We can see the details. We can see what needs to be done. Now, on the 16th of September, we're going to have Mars forming a square to the nodes. So again, Mars in Cancer So we get the idea that there is some important mission, goal, or action that needs to happen that will clear the way so that we can push past these blocks, these karmic stories that keep us stuck in the past. Something needs to change here. When we have a square to the nodes, it is like a missed step. Mars in Cancer, maybe we do need to express anger, which is not always easy. And obviously we need to do it in a safe way, in a good, positive, healthy way if necessary. It might be that we are being pushed to take care of our own needs, to ensure that we are looking out for ourselves, that we are setting good boundaries, and that we are listening to what our gut instincts are telling us without leaping to the defense. Because sometimes Mars in Cancer can get very triggered because we can regress if we get angry or scared by something. So we just need to pay attention. What am I being prompted to do? What sort of actions do I feel the need to take here? The need comes from it being in the sign Cancer. On the 18th of September, we continue these kind of karmic stories. The nodes are associated with our evolving journey as a soul and as a soul collective. And on the 18th of September, we are going to have the first of the eclipses. We are moving into eclipse season. And this is going to be the lunar eclipse. And it'll be at 25 degrees and 40 minutes of the sign Pisces. And so basically this full moon is made important by the fact that it's an eclipse. It's the first of the eclipses in Pisces before the nodes will move into Pisces and Virgo. So we're getting introduced to some story that is going to be in play for the next 18 months or so. And we are starting to get a hint of what needs to be released. There is a big conclusion or a big release or possibly a big sort of crisis point that we come to as we have the lunar eclipse in Pisces, because something now is emerging. Something is telling us that we need to let go, or we need to forget, or we need to forgive. There is some kind of big talking point around this time as well, because the moon and sun will also be square to Jupiter in Gemini. The moon is also in a conjunction with Neptune as well. So we're getting a lot of emotional content, psychic content, collective stories. It's almost like the memories of the collective that are coming up around this time. But for each of us, perhaps it is the memories of the past that are prompting some kind of important decision, as well as these big conversations and a need maybe to come to some kind of new understanding. These are some of the themes that come out from this full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. From there, we once again come to the turning of the wheel of the year. The sun goes into Libra on the 22nd of September. This is the herald of autumn in the northern hemisphere. This is autumn equinox. It's the spring equinox, of course, in the southern hemisphere. But now we come to a time where we are beginning to weigh up everything that we have been throughout the year. And the chart for the ingress of the sun into Libra can be used to give us some kind of flavor for the quarter ahead. I will be exploring this chart over on my Substack in my weekly newsletter for this week that includes the 22nd of September. So I will be going through the chart and having a look at what that says about the next 3 months. But generally speaking, of course, we're going into Libra season. So now this is for all of us a time to look at how much have we reaped, depending on how much have we sown, how much have we worked. Is it all balancing out? Is my life in balance? Are my relationships working for me? These are the kinds of things that we ask as the sun goes into Libra. It prompts some reflection on our connection to other people, because Libra is all about our connection to each other. None of us is an island, it says Libra to Aries over on the other side of the chart. So we have Libra season beginning, and then Venus goes into Scorpio. This is on the 23rd of September. So that is an intensification around our relationships. Venus is the ruler of Libra. Venus can sometimes struggle a little in Scorpio because she's far away from home, because she's opposite to her sign Taurus. And there is a sense that sometimes we can become a little jealous or a little overly passionate when it comes to our relationships with other people, with our significant others in particular. And sometimes this transit can bring up issues that are connected with who has the power and the control within relationships. And often it's the person that controls the purse strings with Venus going into Scorpio. So maybe we just need to kind of address some of these issues. How well are we sharing, generally speaking, with one another? Hopefully the sun going through Libra will try to keep things polite, because we are wanting to sort of make friends with one another. We're wanting to keep on a good, even footing with one another whilst the sun is transiting through Libra. We've also got Juno there in Libra as well. So she is very focused on good relationships and equality within relationships. So perhaps Venus in Scorpio will encourage us to face some of our fears from the heart. So when we pour love into those parts of ourselves that have been fearful, then we recover some strength. Then we are able to deal with our fears and our fears of change. We then have Mercury going into Libra as well. This is on the 26th of September. So now we're really getting a build up here, and that build up is going to produce a conjunction of the Sun and Mercury whilst they are conjunct to the South Node. So the Sun conjunct the South Node is on the 29th of September. On that date, we're also going to have the Sun and Mercury in the South Node all hanging out on 6 degrees, around 6 degrees of Libra. And then Mercury will conjoin the South Node and the Sun will conjoin Mercury on the 30th of September. So 29th and 30th of September, we have this conjunction of Mercury, the Sun and the South Node. So we're getting some kind of illumination around old karmic patterns connected with our relationships, old ideas, old thoughts, old flames, old connections. And maybe we're being prompted to release certain connections. We had this story whilst Venus was conjunct the South Node as well. But now we're also perhaps looking at releasing old ideas about how things should or could have been, letting go of that to release energy, to push us forward, to compel us to move forwards towards those things and those relationships that excite us, the North Node in Aries, or just those circumstances that make us excited and feel like we want to go for them. We want to go after our goals. We've already had that push this month to take care of our needs, to address where we feel angry or frustrated or lacking will or lacking energy. We've already been pushed to address all of this. So now the conversation is, what else do we need to let go of so that I can be free, so that I can be independent? And maybe too, we're kind of taking the best of the past. So the South Node is not all about getting rid of stuff. The South Node can actually represent the best of what we have learned, or the best connections that we have made, the best of our history. And we are now using that. We're taking the best of everything that we've experienced and using that to illuminate the path ahead, to help us to get what we want from our lives. So it's an interesting conjunction of the Sun and Mercury because it is so bound up with this old karmic story. In between all of that, Also on the 30th of September, Mars will form a trine to Saturn. So this is so interesting how the story is kind of almost like doubling up, because Saturn is also known as Old Father Time. And so now we have a really constructive connection between Mars in Cancer and Saturn in Pisces. So it's almost like we're being shown that if we put the effort in, then we will get the long-term security that we're looking for. If we put the effort in and follow our feelings, if we follow our intuition, if we're brave enough, Mars, if we're brave enough to follow our gut instincts, then we can build that dream. Saturn over there in Pisces. And maybe we can break some of these old karmic patterns that have kept us stuck and start to feel as though we're getting on top of the problems that have been holding us back or limiting us. So we're starting to see that there is a path that we can carve out for ourselves, that we can get to work on this, that there is something that we can do. So really we're ending the month on quite a constructive note with Mars trine to Saturn. So this concludes my reading for September 2024. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please do click a like and subscribe. It does help with the algorithm. And if you would like to hear more from me, I have put all of my links below to my website, to readings, to my Patreon, to my Substack, and all my social media. I will see you again soon. And in the meantime, I wish you many blessings on your path.